We're here.
So there's a lot to cover this week, as it turns out.
Okay.
So last week
I'm ready.
Last week we went into Go Ask Alice, and this week we're going to go into her next book, which is Jay's Journal. Now, if you remember,
Her next book.
Yeah.
Her
Now,
next
if you remember last time, I had notes of. I have about twice as many notes.
I don't know if that's good or bad. If it's that bad.
And there is so much to cover that we are actually not going to look at the content of this book this week.
Oh, good.
Because we have, next week we will. But I have some things that are coming.
It's actually 2 weeks.
Yeah. So
because we're preempted next week for the parade. Oh, that's the week after. Right. For Christmas special.
Next week we're going to be going over this one. But I have so much backstory to cover about this that it's going to be 2 weeks. Now, I wrote a script out, and so let's just see. Oh, our backup audio recording. That's what this thing's always for. Oh, gosh. Now it's like going crazy.
Should be in a boom.
Super professional here, right? All right. So where we left off last week, Beatrice Sparks had penned her first actually successful piece of literature in 1971 called Go Ask Alice.
But people soon discovered she was full of crap. Mm-hmm. That she had made the whole thing up, that she didn't have a PhD, that there was no child involved that had written the diary, so there could not be anyone that had died at the end, that the whole thing was right-wing nonsense.
Well, just nonsense, so about the right wing. But before we go into our next work, Jay's Journal, we're going to take a step back because she's 61 years old when Jay's Journal comes out, and she's 53 when Go Ask Alice comes out. And so that's what happened in the first half century of Beatrice's life, right? So she was born Beatrice Ruby Matthews and got married at the age of 19. Nice and young back in the day. A lot of this upcoming research comes from BYU's collection of Beatrice Sparks papers. So she, in 2000 and 2005, she gave a bunch of boxes to BYU to have as an archive. And if you go up there, you can then look at her papers. And some of the catalog items are online, and so basically what they are. And so using that thing, then you can try to see if you can find other copies of it somewhere. So I'm not going to go up to Provo, Utah, just for the... I'd actually love to be quite honest with you, but this is not much.
You've been to Utah. You have relatives in Utah.
I haven't been to Utah. No. So her manuscripts and proofs collection, all of them. There's a special section with the following rule: Carton 8 in boxes 10 to 12 are restricted from public viewing until 2060. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's an odd date to pick, given that she gave the box over 7 years before she died.
Yeah.
So it's not like it happened after her death or something. It's almost like, and if it was stuff that she didn't want people to know, she wouldn't have given them over. Since she was like, here, you take this thing, but don't look at it till 2060.
But there was no question she was going to be dead at 2060. It's not like there was a chance she would still...
Right. And
she would have been 120 years old or something. No, 140.
Something. Yeah. And so she wanted people to know about the contents, but it makes me think that there's a lot of law breaking in there somewhere. Yeah. Right? Like there's some kind of legal ramifications for the contents of it. Yeah. That's just the backup. But let's go back to right after World War II. So Beatrice Sparks in 1947 to 49 had an advice, air quotes, column in a comic book. As you know, comic books were really big back then. It's called Junie. And she advised supposed teenagers on love advice. Issue 1, published in 1947, already had a number of questions from supposed teens about dating sent in, which makes you wonder if there were any teens at all, right?
How did they have the address?
Exactly. Yeah. How did she know? How did they know what was going to happen?
How did the first publication already have letters to the editor?
That's a good question. In the comics back then, they were separated in maybe 3 or 4 different stories that they would do, or different sections. And so it wasn't just one story throughout all of them. So there is also one short story by somebody named Susan Lavorne, who nobody knew who she was, but according to her papers at BYU, it was Beatrice Sparks. And her husband's name was Lavorne Greer Sparks. And so she took her husband and sort of moved things around. she was also going by the name B. Sparks at the time. B-E-E Sparks.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's pretty nice.
Beatrice.
Pretty
okay,
nice.
like Aunt B is
Right.
probably Beatrice.
So she has one story under this pseudonym called A Torch for Teacher. It's 2 pages. And it's about a schoolgirl lusting for her teacher. Let's just let that sink. So, yeah. And
Autobiographical.
she ended up going with the teacher, but then the teacher wanted her to eat healthy. Like, here's a bunch of vegetables. You can't have, no burger for you, missy.
That's why she ran away from home and moved in with the teacher, so she wouldn't have to eat her vegetables.
So she was apparently in Chicago at this time, or at least that's where her P.O. boxes and letters was. So
Yeah.
we don't know too much more. So let's see what kind of advice B is giving children in the 1940s. Whether these kids existed or not is up to you. Oh, look, our star is here.
This special. There's a walk-on. The special, like Bob Hope used to do this on the. Come here, baby.
Here's the letter.
All right.
Dear
continue.
B, the most popular boy at school has asked me to go study, and my mother doesn't think I should. She says that at 15, I'm too young to know what I want, but I think that Teddy is wonderful, and I want to go study with him. Betsy. Dear Betsy.
Dear Betsy.
Going steady is fun. It means you're always sure of a date, no matter what comes up. It means the phone will ring every evening just for you. But it also means that you'll be Ted's girl. Other fellows won't want to muscle in his territory. You'll miss out on flattering, coothsome remarks from your dance partners. And you'll be stuck with Teddy's crowd for good.
Seems like an argument against marriage.
There will be no more blind dates, no more parties with the kids from another school, no more wide, innocent eyes as the new basketball star. No, at the new basketball star. I'm not a very good reader. Think it over very carefully, Betsy. Going steady is fun for a while, but suddenly you're bored in the brain with the same silly laugh, the same old line, and the same corny jokes. At 15, your ideas and emotions are changing rapidly, and seeing the same boy with the same ideas just doesn't go well with that change. Right now, you think Teddy is the most wonderful male alive, but remember that even banana, strawberry, and chocolate splits would become tiring as a steady diet. So she is advising this 15-year-old to be a floozy.
But she's also, this is an argument against marriage.
Monogamy. Yeah. So she's like, well, you should really just be a whore. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah, there might be a handsome basketball player that comes along and that you want to
That's her advice
make
for the
some
teen.
time with.
Let's move on. Here's some more. Dear B, I'm going with a boy that I like very much, but he has a bad reputation. And now people are beginning to talk about me, although I have never done anything to make them talk. What should I do? Edith. Dear Edith, if a person has a bad reputation, usually he had done something to make it that way. And while we do not want to be cruel or unkind, still we must be very careful. If you rubbed against someone who's covered with mud, some of it will rub off on you, wouldn't it? Guilt by association?
Guilt by association, but there's also, it's unclear what the bad reputation is for. Is he pressuring girls to go all the way, or did he rob a liquor store?
But there's also a theme that comes up again, how, basically, in Jay's journal, how he ends up going with temptuous women. Some kind of villainous who then, detracts him into the world of sin and lust. The same kind of thing. All right, so let's move on. The same is true of a reputation. You sound like a lovely girl from your letter, and I'm sure you can make other friends who would lift you up your reputation instead of tearing it down.
But don't make permanent friends, because you might want to move on to a new set of friends. Yeah.
Okay, so here are the two most shocking ones. Dear B, not long ago I met a boy that I liked very much, but now my girlfriend has taken him away from me. I like this boy and I want him back. Can you tell me how to take him away from my girlfriend? It's a pretty dastardly thing.
Yeah.
Dear Bertha, if you are sincere about wanting this boy back, you must sit down and look over yourself carefully. What is it about your friend that makes her attractive to the opposite sex? What has she got that you haven't?
Whoa, and not that this guy has got bored in that relationship, as he advised her earlier that he might, and moved on to the next girl. Plus, what kind of friend steals her boyfriend?
She's probably just prettier than you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what she's saying, right?
Or maybe her parents bought her a car. What?
It goes on. Look at yourself the way others see you. Are you always fun to be with? Well groomed and neatly dressed? Are you always smiling and cheerful? Do you make your companions feel they are top drawer stuff? If you do all of these things, your boyfriend still does return. He must be the wandering type, so let him wander while you set your line for one of the stay-at-home variety.
No mention of the fact that her friend stole her boyfriend away.
Right.
Yeah.
And she just
that's just
insulted
the way
her.
it works.
She just bring her down.
You're probably not pretty.
Yeah, look, you're not cheerful enough. Yeah, maybe you are a bitch.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on. This is, again, advice for teenagers. Dear B, I have an older sister who has an argument with me every day. I try to keep away from her, but she is always in the bathroom or wherever I want to be. She thinks she is grown up because she is 16 and I am only 14. Can you tell me how I can make her be better? Your choice. It takes two to have an argument, doesn't it? And then, you do need something to fight about. Most of us disagree with each other on occasion, but we try to have friendly times together too. Most younger sisters are just a little bit jealous.
Blaming the victim again.
Because the older sister gets to go out on a date first, gets to stay up late, and gets to have more grown-up-ish clothes. Do you think you might be just a teensy weeny bit jealous, Joyce? You and your sister could have such lovely times together that it seems to be a shame to waste your time quarreling. Please try to go halfway with your sister, and I'm sure you'll get along much better.
There seems like a theme in her answers, which is blame the person that's writing you the letter.
She's a terrible woman.
You don't need any other information. We know that Joyce is wrong.
So she's 30 years old,
Yeah.
and here's her advice to children.
Yeah.
A therapist, right? This is a
She's
psychologist.
not a therapist, yeah.
Okay, let's go on. From 1950 through 1967, some of which she lived in L.A., and to be a failed writer, writing influencer literature. I was trying to edit this thing, and my editor was going all crazy. It tried to be a failed writer writing influential literature for all the bad reasons, like Ayn Rand. I don't have much because the Santa Monica Library, which has archives of the now long-defunct newspapers she wrote for, was closed today. But next week, I'll still return and report back.
All right.
So we'll pick up in 1967 for now.
Okay.
By now, Sparks is in Utah. And last week I said that BYU had no student records, but I've dug deeper.
Yeah.
She took some classes at a school later run by BYU, so it was some kind of sub-school that later...
But she certainly didn't have a PhD.
She also did some lecturing at BYU, but what she lectured in, I and likely her students have no idea.
Right. Probably, even if you were in the class.
Yeah. Anyways, 1967, she starts a grift with fellow Mormon Mary Ellen Jex Jolly. Somewhere in the vacuum of time known as 1950 to 1967, Beatrice ghost wrote a bit for the Red Skelton Show and somehow befriends Art Linkletter, which we talked about last week. Together, along with Dr. Norman Vincent Peale,
Just a whole bunch of con men.
A New York-based pastor and author of the 1952 book, The Power of Positive Thinking. They formed the Family Achievement Institute. Before we go on.
Yeah, it sounds like Focus on the Family already.
Before we go on, let's take some time with Dr. Norman Vincent. All right. The inventor of his own school of therapy called positivism, Dr. Peale, a personal friend of Richard Nixon, was the pastor at the church that Donald Trump went to as a child. Crazy, right?
Everything you need to know.
He's also widely regarded as a con man and a fraud.
Yes.
I know that last sentence was ambiguous as to whether I was referring to Trump or Peale, but it doesn't actually
matter. They both are.
Let's look at Peale's positivism, which is basically the idea that affirmations and positive thinking are a complete substitute for therapy. This theory that you can smile your way to happiness through a triumph of willpower lives on today. I did that wrong. This theory that you can smile your way to happiness through a triumph of willpower, it lives on today. That's how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Because we're referring to Leni Riefenstahl. However, modern psychologists say the repeated use of Peale's techniques could lead to significant mental health problems.
And also a lessening of your bank account.
There's wide documentation of several individuals he had treated who suffered severe mental breakdowns from following Pearson's teachings. One doctor notes, my 50-year-old client, Sydney, reads everything from Norman Vincent Peale ever wrote, went to many of his sermons at Marble Collegiate Church, and turned many of his friends on to trusting completely in God and in the Reverend Peale to cure them of all their ills. When some of these friends, in spite of their vigorous positive thinking, wound up in the mental asylum. And when Sydney had turned to a massive dose of tranquilizer, and Sydney had to turn to massive doses of tranquilizers to keep himself going. So basically, like, it does the exact opposite. Yeah. It causes insanity. Dr. Peale also exaggerated the fears of his readers and followers, and this inevitably led to aggression and the destruction of those considered negative. Things are presented in an absolutist binary view, where single transgression is effectively the same thing as joining the Symbionese Liberation Army and planning terrorist attacks. Instead of a slippery slope, this is a sharp cliff theory. This is Dr. Peale. Let's get back to our main road. Sparks, 67, working with fellow LDS member Stephen Covey. Oh shit, there's another name. Before his first book, Spiritual Roots of Human Relations, in 1970, and 20 years before his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which makes him famous, Ghost wrote a recorded box set, The Time of Your Life. It's an LP narrated by Art Linkletter, Pat Boone, and Marilyn Vanderburg, who was Miss America in 1958.
There's credentials.
Now, we could give Stephen Covey the same treatment, but really we only have an hour and a lot to cover. So
I'm sure he's this con man as well.
These are the kinds of people that Sparks was running with at the time. But you may say, I'm still not convinced that they're trying to just get money. There were advertisements in various magazines for this institution. Let's go with the main 1970 issue of the Improvement Era. This is an LDS. When I say ODS, that's the modern term for Mormon, the Latter-day Saints. In LDS magazine, where they took out this full-page ad on page 90. Here, I'll read it. Would you be interested? Well, let me try to do an old-timey thing. Would you be interested in joining forces with this group to bring greater achievement and happiness to families in your area and a handsome 5-figure income to you? Associate with success. Decide today to find out how you can earn $15,000 to $50,000 per year with the Family Achievement Institute. It has pictures of Art Linkletter, Marilyn Vanderburg, Pat Boone, and Dr. Norman Vincent Peale on the side. What are your personal goals? Would you like to have the thrill of owning your own business? To render as much needed services for your family in your area and have an annual profit potential from $15,000 to $50,000? Lots of money in 1970. If those are your goals, but your present position does not give you the opportunity to fulfill them, then you should consider the Family Achievement Institute today. And it goes on and sells.
So it's an early pyramid scheme? You buy into that and then you sell other people?
The aid you'll receive includes complete sales training.
Yeah.
Aid in recruiting an effective executive sales organization so that you can profit from all they do. Professionally developed marketing plans. A sales promotion program.
It's a Ponzi scheme. Yeah.
The most complete library of management aids available in franchising today. National advertising and public relations programs. So it is... What it adds up to is one of the most unique business opportunities ever offered. But all we want you to do right now is to let us send you additional information so you can make up your own mind. You under no obligations, decide today to get the full facts about the greatest selling and service opportunity of a lifetime.
Of a lifetime. There's no
Send us the coupon today. Or if you cannot wait to have your questions answered, call us collect. So I skipped a couple paragraphs. I could go back and read them if you want.
No, it's still more con.
And it all up with tremendous product opportunities, unlimited prospects.
Unlimited.
So this is what she was doing for a while. You distribute a distinguished program, endorsed, narrated, supported, and advertised by the most respected group of national personalities ever assembled. The most respected group of national personalities ever assembled. Yes. Miss America, 1958.
Miss America, Norman Vincent Peale, and Art Linkletter.
And Pat Boone.
And Pat Boone.
A program which was developed over a period of 4 years by competent, educated group of research technicians, social scientists, and educators.
Yes, because at colleges they never take more than 15 or 20 minutes to prepare a curriculum.
It is for the entire family, a program for which almost every family in your area will be a prospective customer. And the Family Achievement Institute program is backed by one of the greatest marketing teams ever assembled. All right. Okay. So, after that, 1967...
Was anyone charged in that scam, or...?
no, I
Yeah.
After that 1967 ghostwriting, B came out with her first book, a self-help book that I have a copy of coming in the mail. It's rare, but I was able to get it for cheap. I'll be giving you her advice along with the articles next time. Go Ask Alice really turned into a molding of these pursuits. Her snappy, strange, childish ways of Beatrice Sparks from the comics, a self-anointing that she somehow has good advice, and her strange view of the world through Norman Vincent Peale and all those other people. Really, the book exudes how Stephen Covey and Norman Peale believe the world works. And that's probably why it's such an absurdist comedy. Honestly, it's probably why the characters all kill themselves off in the end as well. Not even the smooth-brained of Sparks is able to paper over this narrative. But her path to Jay's journal went in a different direction. And I'm going to take a break. There's all this talking.
Take a break and drink some vinegar.
Yes, some Brags. Our first. We don't have any sponsors. What are we doing?
Pieces of pussycat all
20
over
minutes.
now.
Okay, good.
All right, he's finished. Now that he's got my black shirt covered with cat.
So, perhaps it has something to do, her path to Jay's journal, with a woman named Linda Glovick, who worked at Prentice Hall and was the real editor of Go Ask Alice, because Beatrice Sparks was the author. A failed writer, in the 1970s, Glovick wrote a number of books all centered on the occult and witchcraft, but aimed towards children. For instance, she wrote a recipe book, The Little Witch's Black Magic Cookbook. And she also wrote Potions, Lotions, Tonics, and Teas, and The Little Witch's Book of Yoga. These are all kind of just children's books, but they do go over some occult parts. And
it seems weird. It seems...
Yeah, and there were friendly, cartoonish introductions to the occult, and they were written for children. And it was throughout the time that Sparks was editing Jay's journal. And not many people have linked Linda Glovick to Sparks, but this is kind of breaking news. There's a lot of evidence to point them together. Also, it's worth noting that Jay's journal is now being done by Simon & Schuster, right?
Oh.
And so...
What year is that reprint?
No, Simon & Schuster did the publication.
Originally.
Times Books did the publication in 1979, but then it was quickly bought up by Simon & Schuster shortly.
Who still have it, but are not reprinting it now.
Yes, they are.
Oh, they are? They're still printing Jay's journal?
Absolutely. And I'll go into why. Simon & Schuster, in 1929, knowingly published another fake story called Cradle of the Deep, which was a smash hit. In it, the author claims she lived in a trading ship with a bunch of men until she, from being an infant, 1 month old, until she was 17. And it ends with the ship burning and sinking off of Australia as she swims 3 miles to safety with a family of kittens clinging by their claws to her back. When the sunken ship was discovered safely harbored in California, some questions for the author arose. And it was all fraudulent. But it made a lot of money.
Not to mention the plot of Pirates of Penzance.
But no questions for Simon & Schuster.
Yeah.
The valuable lesson was that sensationalist fake works can be profitable, and they get away scot-free.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, forward to post-2012 after Sparks' death, our friends at SNS have been rapid-firing a bunch more anonymous journals. 2013, we had Letting Anna Go about anorexia. 2014 saw the Book of David. And the next year, Calling Maggie May, followed by a 2019 called Breaking Bailey. So
all of which are likely...
They'll say something like, in the spirit of Go Ask Alice, and blah, 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 right? And it is the same format of the journals.
Yeah.
But Simon & Schuster sells these 4 post-Sparks books together with the 3 of Sparks in a series. So there's a 1990s book that talks about the evils of rap music. Initially, I thought that maybe Linda Glovick was our mysterious writer for the post ones. But then I realized anybody with access to a keyboard and Jack Daniels could pump this stuff out. And so Simon & Schuster had at least stopped claiming they're based on reality. And so, instead, they just say nothing about it. It's like, here's a book, have fun, right? It just says, done by anonymous, they make no comment as to the authenticity of it. So let's get back to Jay's journal.
All right.
which is ostensibly based on a real person. So, Alden Neil Barrett was born in a small Mormon town in Utah on September 4th, 1954. In high school, he was tested as having a genius IQ and was very involved in his school's debate team and drama club. He also enjoyed writing poetry. During his teenage years, he began to experience problems with depression and to rebel against the Mormon religion and society. Like many other young people in the area, he was interested in Eastern religions, espoused anti-establishment views, and got involved with taking drugs. Sounds like just being a teenager.
Yeah.
His mother saw red flags in his son's indiscretions. From his anti-government sentiments during America's year in Vietnam to his criticism of the LDS Church and the Mormon religion. As we've demonstrated before, there's profoundly unnuanced views that religious conservatives tend towards, where being against, say, the Vietnam draft is exactly mathematically equivalent to firing on people robbing a bank with Patty Hearst to fund a communist revolution.
Yes.
Alden's family noticed he was having problems, but the psychiatric help they arranged for him didn't work out. At the age of 16, he very sadly, ended his own life by shooting himself, feeling his life had spiraled out of control due to his depression and problems with a girlfriend. Very sad story. He was posthumously diagnosed with clinical depression. 2 years later, in 1973, his grieving parents contacted a woman in Provo, Utah, Beatrice Sparks. They were part of the Mormon Church as well. It was an open secret at the time that Beatrice Sparks was the editor of the alleged real-life journal Go Ask Alice. So it was known within Mormonism. Alden's mother wanted Beatrice to write it as a warning for those who questioned religion and apple pie conservatism, but she thought that, along with the troubles with his girlfriend, was the evil force that led him astray. Now we're going to bring in Scott Barrett, which was Alden's younger brother, who was age 11 at the time, who found his older brother dead and bleeding in his bedroom floor from the gunshot wound. Said, after I had given Sparks his journal, we met a couple of times. She didn't say to me ever that she was going to write about devil worship. She said, it's not Alden's story. Scott was a teenager at the time. And Sparks was just straight up lying to him.
Yeah.
And so basically, like, the mother was so,
taken with grief.
Bereaved that she sent her son. And Sparks just straight up lied to his face. It's like this 14 or 15-year-old kid, All right. She didn't come let us read it before it was published, said Barrett. She promised faithfully she would do that. She didn't even tell us when she was done, when she actually sent it to print. She eventually didn't respond to a call to letters, and after a year or two, we gave up and decided it wasn't happening. How long can an edit take? Right? You're supposed to edit it. 6 years later, our family friends told us, oh, you've come out with a book. That's how we found out about it. Disgusting, right? What they found was Jay's journal. The shocking diary of a 16-year-old helplessly drawn into a world of witchcraft and evil. The book changed Alden from a sensitive, questioning young man with a high school girlfriend and sympathies towards Eastern religions to a curious teenager who unwittingly finds himself participating in satanic rituals, crazed sex with a girlfriend named Tina, and outrageous acts of supernatural black magic. The only real thing about it is when Jay kills himself. Sad. Her accurate depictions of satanic cults, including ceremonies and specific practices, make one wonder whether she was involved in them herself at the time. And this is the history of magic and the occult. This is a scholarly work on basically, basically the history of Satanism and satanic things like that. And I was reading this all week as a cross-reference to see if she was accurate as far as this scholar.
And?
For Satanism, yes.
She knows her
She
Satanism.
knows what she's talking about. It's the only thing she
Face
seems
it that
to be,
way.
It's the only thing she seems to be well informed upon is Satanism.
And drugs.
And drugs.
And drinking.
Yeah.
Day drinking.
Who could she have known that knew this? Linda Glovick, maybe?
Art Linklater?
No.
Yeah.
Linda Glovick, the one that wrote all of the witchcraft books.
Oh.
Right? That's where she comes back in.
Exactly.
Who knows? Linda Glovick never married. And they talk about a forbidden relationship.
Oh.
With a girl named Tina.
Oh.
I kind of think that some of it is Beatrice getting a bit of infidelity, but have to read it again. Let's go through it. The identifying details of the journal had also not been changed enough. So people in the community easily figured out Jay's true identity just by reading it. As for a rough estimate of the content, let's go over it. Arden's journal is significantly shorter in its length and timetable than Jay's journal. It's less than 100 entries covering 4 months. It never mentions the occult or any strange or supernatural events. Jay's journal, however, consists of 212 entries over a period of 22 months. Only 21 of the 212 journal entries were actually Alden's. And you can tell by reading it when it changes, because it goes to a much more sophisticated author, which is the 16-year-old boy. So this is damning evidence. But we have to see what Sparks claims about this. She says that satanic entries were from other teachers she had worked with, combined with things she had written herself. Her notes and drafts on the matter are in that carton, which cannot be opened until 2016. Yep. Although the real Alden Journal had, of course, never had the occult, but that didn't stop the Satanists from around the country pilgrimaging to the family home in the small Mormon town in Utah. The family recalls being awoken by strangers performing satanic rituals on their lawn after reading Sparks' story. They found decapitated animals in their grass and in their mailbox in the mornings, which had been ritually sacrificed the night before. Because of this, the family moved and used aliases throughout the early 80s. Eventually, his parents divorced, citing stress as a primary cause of the breakup. Alden's grave was vandalized several times, as well as being stolen, and then returned facing in the opposite direction. Eventually, the city moved the grave to a secret location. Thank you, Beatrice Sparks.
That's right.
Awful. Scott had concert run-ins with Satanists who had journeyed to the small town. I quote, I knew a teenage boy who had been to Alden's grave site several times and had taken the time to draw a likeness of Alden from the rendering of his headstone. He made a shrine in his room, complete with satanic symbols and blood. Some of my old friends had witnessed him praying to Alden. The worst part of all this is that Sparks is desecrating the dead. This is a terrible child that killed himself.
Yes.
Who cannot contest her lives.
She's cashing in on it.
She exercises this convenient fact with vigor. In Jay's journal, demonic entities overpower 2 separate vehicles, resulting in the deaths of 2 of Jay's friends. In reality, 2 of Alden's friends died in car-related accidents, but not in a way described in the book as supernatural ghosts turning the steering wheel to collide with another car. They were terrible accidents, an investigator later in interview says, but in the 1960s and 70s, teenagers famously bought and drove barely functioning, poorly maintained, unsafe cars, which were highly susceptible to mechanical failure. If you remember this.
Yeah.
This is exactly the kinds of accidents which were common. It was unlikely to be a satanic demon.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's just terrible. Right? But she puts this crazy myth. It's just awful. Most remarkable to Barrett was Sparks' insistence that Jay's journal was the true story, and any attempt to revise it would be a fabrication. So, it's not a fabrication. Changing it from what it is, that's the fabrication. In a 2004 article from the Salt Lake City Weekly, in a house furnished with older furniture from Salt Lake City's LDS temple, Sparks still lives in Provo today. She contends her book is true to Alden's life, even if at her elderly age she's a little fuzzy about the details of her research. She's got it all written down. She does recall, however, that she interviewed Alden's friends to fill out the story. She admits to changing some of the facts to protect the family's identity.
Seems like she made it worse. And no one was protecting the family's identity. Everybody knows who the family is.
Her attorney says, just don't say anything about it. But she decided to go in and talk anyway. I don't want to be a friend of Satan, said Sparks. Of the claimed 19 books she's written, my note, only 7 of which were published and 9 that made it to the BYU collection that were unpublished. I don't know where I think 19 from. I think she just made it up. Jay's journal stand as a most soul-wrenching cautionary trail. She claims she didn't even really want to write it, but felt duty-bound to save young people from the clutches of occultism.
That's right.
She felt sinister vibrations while researching and writing the book. I didn't write it after the sun went down, she said. I don't know much about what Satan does. I don't want to know. It was very, very hard for me to write. Really? She explained that she could not have imagined or fabricated the sordid details of the book, probably because it was based on Sparks' own delusions and experiences. She goes on, the bad things I got directly from Alden's friends. I took them down word for word. About the court activities, his friends knew that he was in it. However, this is a 2004 interview, and what Sparks says really depends on the date the article in the interview was made. At one point, she claims she edited her book from a compilation of 3 journals. And I'm guessing it was Alden's journal, her own journal, Into the Occult, and stuff that she made up. So 2 of them were her. But then changed her account to use Alden's journal and interviews from 3 of his closest friends. Her explanations don't add up. Why can't she make up her mind? Why can't she make up her mind about things? His mother huffed in a 2004 interview. What did she really do? This is a mother, again, what is this, 40 years after, or 35 years after, right? They're like, what the hell? She's still pissed off about it. Sparks paused thoughtfully before giving her response to the interviewer. I talked to people who were friends. Maybe they were not friends of Alden, she said. So I talked to people who were, or maybe I didn't. I don't know. She didn't elaborate on whether that meant she had interviewed people who had lied about Alden or simply bad influence on him. She did express great sympathy for the family, however. Meanwhile, the printing press rolls on and the royalty checks roll in. I was heartbroken. Sorry for the whole family, she said. I would never hurt anyone. Sparks eventually sent the family a check for, guess how much money?
$200.
$75 with an apology for the hardships. And that was the end of it. $75. Here's your cut for ruining your life.
$750 of which I had to give to the Mormons.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know when that was. It was probably like in 2011 dollars. She admits to changing some facts. This is supposed like 1979.
Yeah.
She admits to changing some facts to protect the family's identity, per the book's disclaimer. She completely failed in this pursuit, as everyone was immediately able to tell who the book was talking about, who was familiar with the story. She kept just enough reality in there to tear apart everyone's life. Splendid.
Great.
Yeah. The book is riddled with poetry, and frankly, it's mostly rubbish, one of Alden's friends said. There might be 1 or 2 real ones. The rest read like literature written on a bathroom wall. And we're going to read some of it next time. In 1997, Scott, the brother who had the unfortunate reality of finding his dead brother, published a book which he hoped to set the record straight. He called A Place in the Sun, The Truth Behind Jay's Journal. It turns out that he's not very good at doing this part of it. And so a lot of what follows is from posts talking about this follow-up work. So this is true as anything else found on the internet. Just a warning. Okay. First, we'll start out with a comment from Beatrice Sparks' supposed great-granddaughter, who I've emailed and haven't got a response back yet. But this is a comment she made in 2011. Beatrice Sparks did not do the thing that everyone says she did. She was honest about her dealings. I read Jay's journal, and I'm planning to read A Place in the Sun as well. She told all of her family not to read Jay's journal because of the satanic nature behind the stories. But what was in the book was true. It all happened, and it still does today. And again, this is stuff about, like, levitating coins and, like, seeing the future and ghosts coming in and, demons. It's Scooby-Doo shit. Anyway. Jay got lost in drugs and witchcraft and wanted a way out. He eventually found his way out. B. Sparks wrote his account, and when his family discovered all the things that they did not know about, they were scared. So they took it out on my great-grandma. But what she published in that book was the complete truth. So this is a contention of her family, is that it's real. There's so much to unpack in there. I just don't know where to start. In the same thread, Alden's little brother made this comment, also 2011, about his 1997 book, that he'd love to give everybody a copy, but he has limited copies and he really can't afford to ship it, to the relative of B. Sparks. Last time I talked to her, she thought I was trying to extort her for money, and she refused to name her sources. I claim that source is Lynn Golovic, which is named Tina in the book. So it's again a very similar naming scheme, which she does. Back to Scott. I just wanted the truth, not any money from her. If she could tell me who her one source is, that I may confirm just how deeply she claimed he was involved in witchcraft, demon worship, and cattle mutilation, I have the complete, unedited, handwritten journal in my possession. Nothing there even hints at the fact that he was involved in any of the above-mentioned strangeness. Once more, of the occult activities mentioned in the book, each seems out of context with actual Wiccan ceremonies, and that's true. It's actually with Satanism. I have done my research, and your great-grandmother made a lot up in that book. Have her give me the name of her source, and let me interview him, and we'll see what happens. This is a year before she died, and of course he never got it. Here's his fact. He says, Alden was on house arrest at the time he was writing the journal for 6 months. He never had a car named Toad, which they talk about in here. He never had his driver's license, so he couldn't even drive. There's no mention of cattle mutilation, cat murder, bathing in blood, demon possession, satanic marriage. This is all in the book, by the way. It's that insane. The Mormon Church, official bookstore, Deseret Books, sells Jay's journal, full of satanic cult and sadistic sex online, but refuses to sell Scott's correction book because it contains some profanity.
Oh.
Gotta love the religious conservatives.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, in the 2004 article where Alden's grave used to be in Pleasant Grove Cemetery, people still claim it occasionally glows an eerie glow, or an eerie green. Now, before you say, but he's no longer there.
Yeah.
This doesn't matter. These claims have no basis in reality to begin with. Reality changing doesn't actually affect whether people believe them. That's how it works. At Alden's high school, a 2011 documentary was made where the teachers and school officials talked about the campus being haunted, as if it was a foregone conclusion, as real as saying their rooms have doors.
Yeah. Right.
And next time we're going to go into the content and read some of Jay's journal and also talk about what happened in the world between 1973 and 79 and why those 6 years seem to be reflected in the book. That's the back story. Do you have any questions?
No. It seems like she's a con man and only knew con men, and nobody stopped her.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
right?
Simon & Schuster got behind her and published 2 books. And
yeah. Yeah, well, that's that. I was expecting this to be an hour, but it's only 42 minutes. Yeah. It's just wild how much he messed up all those people's lives. With like no... I mean, could you imagine that? If somebody said, hey, here's a journal of some teenager that committed suicide. Yeah. And you say, and they say, can you maybe publish this and do some editing? And they say,
I'm going to punch it up.
I'm going to basically take only 10% of this, make up all of the rest, and put in satanic blood and all this other stuff. What kind of what kind of person would
Well, look at her history.
You have to have no morals
don't
whatsoever.
Forget she spent a couple of years with a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, but like...
I know, there's something else about a dead child, but it didn't bother her.
There's something wrong there.
I guess it didn't bother. The whole dead child thing isn't a deal breaker for her.
And, like... It's a small town. It's like she knew these people.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, here's what I'm going to do. Like,
no shame.
No shame whatsoever. And you got to give it to Simon & Schuster, who said, or he said, sure, what the fuck? Let's just put it out. Like, yeah, it's true. Why not? Like, what? Like every person along the way. It's just.
Yeah, there's no good people involved.
Something wrong. Yeah. When somebody say, hold on your horses, like, this is going to really affect their family.
Yeah.
And, like, do some terrible things. And as opposed to actually, helping decrease Satanism, this thing increased it quite a bit. And one of the books I'm going to be going after this is what is credited as another fake diary published a year after 1980, which was Start of the Satanic Panic. So I'm going to be getting that book, also fake. But a bunch of fake journals popped up in the era. There was another fake one where somebody said he was the first cloning person. Yeah. Which is weird because there are a number of people that have reached out and said, I remember that. I was part of it, or something like that. And they truly think that they were part of this fake event.
I was a scientist on that.
Yeah. And it's genuine.
Yeah.
It's just so strange. Like,
how many of the people that come in and said, yes, I worked on that project, are doing it for their own laughs? Probably some.
I don't think these people are. Because, like, the reviews I saw, it was like, they're dropping their emails saying, please contact me. I desperately want to put these memories back together. This has been a terrible thing of my life.
Mental patience.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of weird delusional fantasy where people sort of glam onto these things. They can't tell the difference between reality. I don't know what it is.
There's a lot of it going on now.
Yeah, it is.
Very popular.
It's 45 minutes, nice and short.
All right.
But yeah,
very good.
Part 2's coming up next week.
Next week, part 2.